Hey, I'm Joe, and I'm back with the tiniest house I've built so far. To say it's the smallest house is literally the truth. It only takes up 12 tiles, and I've been fascinated with all these people who build these tiny houses based on 4x4 and similar sizes. So I decided to take up the challenge and make an even smaller house. I wanted to put a roof on this house, but then I decided against it because I wanted to have the central skylight to bring in a little bit of light and add a little bit of interest to this otherwise very small house. It's got a bedroom which you see straight ahead. There's a little kitchenette off to the left, and we are presently in the lounge area, which is just a little bookcase and a couch. The kitchen is fully functional. You can operate the fridge. You've got spare counter space there for cooking, and the stove does work even though it's half embedded into the counter. Right in the foreground is the computer and a desk which hovers over the bed, but the bed is operational. And here you can see the little lounge area with a sort of makeshift wardrobe above it, and an even higher shelf with a bit more bric-a-brac. The only chair I could find in the base game is that sort of slatted love seat that actually fits and doesn't protrude from the walls. In new expansion packs, there are much nicer furniture, but this was built using only base objects. This is a view from the kitchenette side. And now over to the tiny bathroom. This also all works. The shower does work, even though it's got such a small space in front of the shower door. The basin has been reduced ever so slightly so it does fit, and the toilet also works. My main goal was to make this work and to be fully functional. Here and there you do get a bit of a glitch, but even the dustbin works and you can get past the dustbin and the fridge. I kept the interior fairly white, and then with some very sort of loud colours to make it a bit more lively because it's really a very small space. Windows wise, I kept it to very small high windows for a bit of privacy, except for this large window in the sort of central living area, purely just to bring in a bit of light. Planted some flowers and tallish plants outside just to give you a bit of privacy. Here's a view of the timber roof, which technically doesn't really work. This is a view from the top. As you can see, it's incredibly small. This region is quite pretty when it's at night and it's all lit up. So it's really a star shape with a little covered porch area just for protection against the rain. I really did enjoy this, and I actually am planning to do a 3x3 house based on this diagonal principle, and I look forward to that because that's going to be quite a challenge, but I do believe it can be done. If you want to download this house, you can do so from the Sims gallery in the links below. It's also available for free on my Patreon account. And do bear in mind that it's only base game, so it doesn't have any special requirements except that your game be up to date, so that you can have glass roofs. There's an interesting technical note here that you can actually put more into a diagonal square than you can just a normal 90-degree square. It's based on how the game draws walls and creates the space between different points when you pull the walls through. So this is why you're actually able to put a bed and have space next to it. Now let's have a look at the short speed build as I created this house. So there's your base square, which is 3x3, which gives you 9 square tiles. And then the little bits that I add on for the star shape are each one full tile, but because they cut away they cut away a quarter of each tile, of each corner tile of the main body of the house, you actually end up with 12 squares. The toilet fits into that corner. I actually rotated it a little bit later just to add a bit more space and also makes it look a little better. The basin needs to be reduced very slightly by one degree down so that it fits in there. It is usable, but otherwise if it's full scale it takes up too much space and the bathroom's not usable. As I mentioned before, you can actually use the shower and the bathroom, even though there is just a tiny little bit of space between the shower doors and the wall. Here's the only love seat that I could get to fit that didn't protrude through the walls, So I kind of just made it look as if it was built in to the house itself. I put in a bookcase which also functions, and these giant stoves. I don't know where Maxie got the ideas for these massive stoves, but it does work, and it doesn't seem to set fire to the counters, interestingly enough. So the corner counter is just really there to fill up the space, so it doesn't, you don't have this big cavity. You can't actually use it for anything. The TV's above the bed, so you can actually view it from the sitting area. And I thought, well, add a bit of soft textiles to the floor. I found that designing in the base game is very, very limited. There's so few walls and floors and actually decorations one can use. However, I wanted to make this available to anybody who wanted to see how it was done. So this is built purely using base game objects only. The bed is functional. It sits about a third under the sort of computer table. In future expansion packs, you can actually get a proper little desk that is only a 1 tile wide, but there is no such thing in the base game, so I used that glass table, which is really about all that I could get that would work and look fairly decent in there. Yeah, I tried different looks for the outside. I wasn't altogether sure how to go with the decorations, so I kind of created a sort of a modern looking cabin. I actually changed that large window to just a simple modern window because it didn't blend with the rest of the windows. Unfortunately, many of the windows and doors don't all match up in color. This is just removing all the walls on the upper level so I can create a sort of a slab roof effect that I can then cut out and put a skylight in the center. Because the fashion fence from future expansion packs, I don't know which one it is not available in the base game. I used that odd little small fence to create a framework for the skylight and then place the skylight on that. It always looks a little bit more trimmed when you have some sort of base to put your skylight on. Again, this is all using base objects and textures from the game. This is using the latest update patch, which gives you glass roofs. There's another issue with building in the base game is that there's very few textures that you can actually use on the roof. I went through a whole lot of them and eventually just decided on using timber. I thought I'd never use this foundation, which is like a latticework raised cabin sort of appearance. So I thought I'd give it a bash, and I actually quite liked the way it turned out. Then I decided, well, you have to have a little porch, so began putting it all together. But unfortunately, sometimes you have to do things in bits and pieces, or it destroys what you've already built. The one thing I always comment in that and say that I wish there were more staircases. They're all pretty much the same in similar colors. There's me building the little covered area and also extending the porch because I thought, well, it's really a bit small to do anything with. You might actually be able to put a tiny chair or something on that porch if you download the game. I didn't put anything there to do this build, just simply to keep the build a bit shorter. And then I thought, well, let's add a bit of decoration around the outside and also a little bit of privacy because this is quite a large window. So from the street, the flowers and bushes tend to give you a little bit of privacy. Although, of course, this is The Sims. They're all exhibitionists. They don't really care who's watching. As long as they're indoors, they're happy. I didn't take the landscaping too far because it's mostly a build, according to challenge. So I didn't want to spend too much time building and decorating the exterior. But I did do a little bit because I do enjoy the gardening side, even though I don't do much gardening in real life. I do enjoy designing them. The plants in the base game are also relatively limited. They're not that many. One tends to forget once you start putting all the expansion packs on of how much extra stuff there really is that you just sort of use and take for granted. But it actually it's not in the base game. Is appropriating new uses for window flower boxes. I wanted to use the square columns on the corners, but of course it's not available in base game, so that was the closest and sort of simplest column I could find for the corners, and it didn't work too bad, even though the colors don't match. There's me putting green timber, sort of greenish bluish color. None of the colors match properly because it's just using the base game. I wanted to put a little chess area outside, so yeah, if your sim feels a bit claustrophobic, you can just simply head outdoors, sit under the tree, and play chess. And I can never leave well enough alone, so I always have to plant stuff up around trees and things. It just makes it look that more real when you've got a bit of landscaping. Most gardens you sort of tend to plant things up in layers, you never just plonk down a tree and just leave it. Terrain paint is also something that I feel always makes it look more finished and makes it look more natural if you actually take your time to paint in. This is very sped up because it's really dull watching somebody spray down terrain paint. So I accelerated this part even more. I forgot the rubbish bin, so I went in and placed it. In my original house, you actually couldn't use the counter, so I actually moved the fridge and the dustbin really about the width of the lip of the dustbin towards the right side of the fridge, and that allowed the sim to get through to the counter and to cook on it, prep food, etc. You're almost done with the landscaping. The lighting is also something that's always, I feel, is quite important, and that I usually get around to doing that towards the end. I feel that it's always something you should leave for the end and then see what your final result is, and then take a look to see what it looks like. Again, I sped up the painting of the terrain paint because it really is tedious to watch somebody doing it. It's you paint, you erase, you paint, you erase, and then you erase some more, and then you erase too much, and then you spray some more, and then you erase some more, and that gives you a very sort of a soft, subtle look. Although technically most of us would prefer neatly groomed lawns, and I did create a custom texture for that, but I kept this house strictly in-game content and nothing else. I thought, well, you can't just have these paths going to nowhere, so I created another cluster of bushes, and then I ran out of money, so I had to use a cheat. It's actually not too expensive a house, but by the time you start adding in all the little bits and extras, it comes to 20-something thousand. I'm not entirely sure. You'd have to check the price when you download it, but it is. I think it's under 25,000. But everything costs money, even ridiculous things like rocks. I mean, since what planet do we live on that rocks cost money? But there you have it. I initially had added a tree into the backyard, but then I felt, well, you're not going to be able to see the house properly, and that's the object of it was to see the house and not just landscaping. So I deleted that tree and that cluster of bushes with rocks. That's where it used to stand. That, of course, I never leave well enough alone, as I've said before. So I carried on planting. I like sort of benches that are kind of built into the garden, and you can literally sit in the garden per se and look out, surrounded by foliage and greenery. A little bit more terrain paint never hurts. And as I'm watching this, I'm thinking of ideas and planning in my architect's head how I'm going to build the 3x3, and I believe it can be done. So do subscribe and switch on notifications, because that video is going to be released very, very shortly. And I do believe it can be done, so I'm setting myself the challenge to build a 3x3 house that works. Of course, if you've watched this video, you will know my trick, and that is to use diagonal rooms, which gives you a lot more space to put stuff into. And there's your basic lighting. And I added a bit of lighting outside because it always illuminates the property at night and gives you so much drama. It's a bit of an odd house, I suppose, in this region, but it is surrounded by modern buildings, etc. So unfortunately we cannot change the terrain, so we're stuck with building on whichever neighborhoods Maxi deems fit to give us. One more light in the back, and that's pretty much done. So here are some screenshots. Do enjoy the rest of the video, and remember to subscribe. I've got a 3x3 coming. Thank you so much for watching, and enjoy your day.